Welcome into Pitchfork Lunch. Yes, I am Michael Caratanudo at Diablo00 on X. The artist formerly known as Twitter is where you can find me, and the show also on IG Live, michael.caratanudo.5. Hit me up on IG. And Pitchfork Lunchers, yes, you know it. Yes, it's Friday. We're going with the backwards hat today in lieu of shout out to my guy, Eric Wilson. But Pitchfork Lunchers, you know it. The YouTube channel. Go to my YouTube channel. All the shows are there. I've said it. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. It's a shout out to John Candy this holiday season from Cool Runnings. But if I said it once, I've said it a million times. Interviews that you've missed from this the start of the show. Coaches, players, all that good stuff. It's all there. And there's been a lot of great coach interviews, a lot of great player interviews. There's been, you get to know players, get to know these athletes. There's also been insiders, friends of the program, and the voice of the Sun Devils. So again, all that we're more looking to have on as we go forward into the new year. Again, the last show is today is December 29th. Well, I won't be on tomorrow, Saturday. So happy early birthday to my to a newly a new Sun Devil taking her first ASU classes. My great sister, brought a tear of joy to my eye that she was um, taking classes at ASU. So, but yes, happy birthday, early birthday to my sister Lisa. So little news and notes there. But yes, the YouTube channel, guys, it is all there. So go check it out. Subscribe to the channel. You can binge watch some of the videos, all of them, not videos, the shows. You can binge watch the shows. But yeah, I mean, we've had JJ Van Niel on, women's volleyball coach, who was the Pac-12 Coach of the Year, also the AVCA Southwest Coach of the Year. Willie Bloomquist, the men's baseball coach, he has been on. Got to catch up with Coach, which is very awesome. Again, always love sitting down talking to Coach. I mean, straight. People say, "Oh, Coach, that coach is a straight shooter." Or that coach, this and that. But like, it's you. It's always great to sit down and talk to Willie Bloomquist. We had Graham Winkworth on, the women's soccer coach, who had a very solid season, went back to the tournament again this year. Jason Mons, football, tight ends coach, been on. Charlie Regal, assistant head coach, special teams coordinator, working with the D-line. He has been on. Natasha Adair, women's basketball coach, has been on. You get what I'm saying. Player-wise, again, same thing. Sights and sounds from practices, all that good stuff. So again, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go to YouTube. Go to my, you can find it, my page on YouTube, obviously, at M as in Michael, V as in Victory, C as in Cat, 005, at MVC005 on YouTube. Subscribe, because guess what? All the shows are there, and there's a lot of information, and again, just kind of getting to know the programs and all that good stuff. So I'm just saying, it wouldn't hurt you. It wouldn't hurt you to yeah, it wouldn't hurt. Just going to throw it out there. A lot going on. Men's hoops, again, taking on Stanford tonight. Hockey getting set to go in Lake Placid, New York. Yes, the site. I talked about it yesterday. The site of the Miracle on Ice, and they're playing in the Herb Brooks Arena, which is just phenomenal. If you've never seen them, if you've never seen Miracle, you should. Phenomenal movie. B, Al Michaels forks up, former Sun Devil. Yes, we know Al Michaels. He called all the hockey, and there's actually kind of cool backstory, man. That he shared. Al Michaels did that. He hadn't really done. I think I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he hadn't done hockey, or did very little, and he was there covered, and they said, "Hey, we need you to do hockey." He's like, "Okay," which of course you would say, and you're going to go prep, and you're going to go organize. But yeah, the way the calls, but yeah, Miracle, such a phenomenal movie throughout the years. I was told that when I was a little young whippersnapper that I was actually in front of the TV for that. I don't remember it, but I was a little whippersnapper. But that being said, yeah, so they're playing in Lake Placid, New York, the men's hockey team, and have a chance to get 2 more big wins to close out 2023 and charge into 2024. But they are in yeah, so they're number 13, and they're rocking it. I've talked about it. Love what Coach Powers is doing. I mean, the lines are just, again, guys are scoring, and which of course I know, Captain Obvious. Thank you. I guess I'm still reeling a little bit from the how much Oklahoma Hey, Oklahoma turned the ball over again. For those of you that watched the bowl game last night between the Sooners and that team from down south, which won. But yeah, Oklahoma just was a charity case with the football. And not that that team from down south didn't make plays. Yes, they did. I'm not going to be all sour grapes to holiday season. Um, but yeah, so it's Oklahoma turned the ball over a ton. That was just ridiculous. But nonetheless, Arizona made plays and they got a bowl win. So in San Antonio, hats off. We move on though. Yeah, I know that sounded so cheery, right? In this holiday festive time of year. Yeah, so hockey getting ready for that. Women's hoops getting ready for their last non-conference game against Santa Clara tomorrow, 1:00. Desert Financial Arena. Get on out there if you're out and about enjoying this holiday time. Get on out there and check it out. It's a like I said, they're 8-4, and again, knock on wood. Love seeing this for Coach Adair. She came on, and again, we're going to have the calendar turns the new year. We're going to have players on. I told you, men's, women's. But yeah, no, it's they're 8-4, and they are taking on Santa Clara, trying to close out. And yeah, they did drop their first. I talked about it. They're 0-1 in conference play, dropping a tough game to Arizona, who again just shot lights out, and ASU just did not have an answer. I mean, it was some days when it's going a team's way, it's going one team's way, and when it's not going your way, it's not going your way. We hear it in sports, and a lot of times we hear it. It's like, oh, more. I always say, oh, more of the excuse train, but no, I'll take that because if a coach says, hey, it's like things we were doing were just not working. Admitting that, yeah, the other team had caused some of that, and there were times that the other team didn't have any cause for it. So I look at it like, yeah, it's one of those things where it's one of those things where you have to it's one of those things where again you just have to you move on from it, and they did. It was 2-game losing streak at home. They lost to Grand Canyon before that, like I mentioned, and then to Arizona, but then they turn around in the Jerry Colangelo Hall of Fame series. And shout out to Jerry Colangelo Foundation doing that, and the Hall of Fame series. I got to see both teams from ASU, and yes, that team down south too. But on the ASU women took on, like I said, Fresno State. The U of A women took on Gonzaga. The ASU men took on Northwestern, and the U of A men took on Alabama. So it's one of those things where it's great to be a part of. You see it. I mean, early season, non-conference matchups. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's um so yeah, I mean that's how they put it on, and how they've done that throughout the years. is very cool. And they play, at the Footprint Center now, but they play in downtown Phoenix. You get that NBA arena feel, and it's awesome. So, but yeah, and both teams feature there. And like I said, it was tough for the men. They got work to do. They can defend their home court. They need to keep defending their home court because that will right a lot of the ship. But now you definitely need to hit some games on the road as they are in Stanford tonight. And again, that's a 9:00 tip off here. 8:00, obviously, in Stanford, and then they take on Cal. On Sunday. Yeah, they take Cal on Sunday. So on the road. So nonetheless, I mean, look, and we'll talk about more of it. Get a little bit. Actually, just found out, going to have Brad Denny, Mr. Brad Denny, joining us on the program in a little bit. Who has his phenomenal Speak of the Devils podcast. He is the co-host, and he's been covering ASU football at 3TV and CBS 5 for quite a long time. But a man that's been around the program, and again, it's going to be jumping on with me. We'll talk a little transfer portal, and yeah, we'll talk a little transfer portal. Obviously, he's done a great job of putting together, obviously, some of the new Devils, obviously transfer portal wise. Love to get his thoughts. We always have some fun conversations at practice and on the up in the press box as well too. So stoked I could get Brad's going to jump on with me in a little bit. So yeah, don't go too far. He'll be jumping on in a little bit, and we yeah. So that'll be awesome. We'll talk a little bit about that. Plus news and notes. I am very stoked. Again, I should have mentioned it yesterday, first show back, but our guy is a finalist for the Hall of Fame, a former Sun Devil. He's a Sun Devil, Jerry. That's right. That's my guy, Eric, too. He's a Sun Devil, but Darren Woodson, who to me, look, a lot of you know this, like getting to go to ASU games when I was younger, Woody was my guy. And then he went, of course, to the Cowboys. And I'm actually going to play next week because I I have to locate it, but I have some sound, obviously, from the Super Bowl and talking to this man's former coach about how he's not in the Hall of Fame yet. Because, and again, you can have your favorite players, and yes, not everybody is Hall of Fame character. It's the Hall of Fame, not Hall of really good or great, right? But Darren Woodson, finalist, loved going to. I mean, watching him play at ASU. You know who I am going to reach out to too? Some stories about recruiting him, and he can tell stories from when Woody was in high school. The Hall of Fame coach Joe Kirsting, longtime friend, happy to call him friend. But I'm going to reach out to Coach Kirsting, see next week if I can get him on, because he could talk a little bit about what he saw of Woody in high school, and you're thinking, can this guy, I see the talent, the potential for growth. How can I help him? But Darren Woodson, nonetheless, you reach out to Coach Kirsting, but Darren Woodson, a finalist, and to me, should be in the Hall of Fame. What he meant to that Cowboys defense over that stretch. I mean, Jimmy Johnson, as a coach, talked about it, and I'm going to have some sound as we get closer to it. But Darren Woodson, to me, is a Hall of Fame safety, and yes, he did play for our Sun Devils, and yes, he did play for the Cowboys, who a lot of you hate, love, but you love. But if you love or hate the Cowboys, you're a Sun Devil. You definitely want the best for Sun Devils. And what he meant to that defense, I mean, that Dallas defense, this is a guy that just was that missing piece. And I think of some of the safeties that are in the Hall of Fame, and being fair, then yes, those safeties deserve to be there. Hold on. Pardon me. Sorry, had a sneeze. Didn't want to do it on camera. See, that's my sneeze cough button. Jump out of the studio real quick. But Darren Woodson, again, like what he meant to that defense and the safeties that are in the Hall of Fame, that have gone in the Hall of Fame recently, to me, when I look at it, Darren Woodson did equally as much, played at a Hall of Fame level, and is very comparable to those safeties. Is comparable to those safeties. And again, it's no disrespect. Like Brian Dawkins should be in the Hall of Fame. Those of you that know my pro football, obviously allegiance, know it's very tough to root for anybody that played for a certain team. But Brian Dawkins, there. That's what Darren Woodson was to the Cowboys defense as well. George Lynch, like definitely Hall of Famer. That's what Darren Woodson was to the defense. See what I'm getting at? Because when you look at it and you go and what it was to the teams, and like that defense was just nasty. The Cowboys defense over those Super Bowl runs with Jimmy Johnson. So big pitchfork lunch shout out to Darren Woodson. Deserves it. And after the new year, I'm going to aim to get Mr. Woodson on, because technically from the Super Bowl, a lot of you pitchfork lunchers know my guy. He respectfully owes me an interview. So I'm gonna work on that, because again, I've been beating that drum for a long time, or for a while, not a long time, but for a while, how Darren Woodson is definitely a Hall of Famer. And when people and again, people say, "Oh, you're just saying because he's a cow." No, a lot of Cowboys I love that aren't in the Hall of Fame that I'm like, yes, if I'm just, in my silver and blue shaded glasses, looking at the world through that, then yeah, there's a few Cowboys that would be in the Hall of Fame that again, it's not the Hall of really, really good, it's the Hall of Fame. And I'm not saying it's easy, and guys that are first ballot Hall of Fame, people can see it, but there's no way that Darren Woodson is not a Hall of Famer. I'm sorry. There's no way. Understanding football and talking to, not even just talking to, other defensive coordinators, defensive guys that were sat there and were like, hey, yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those things. So anyway, I'm going to take a real quick break. When we get back, I'm going to jump into men's hoops and their matchup again with Stanford tonight, and what Bobby Hurley has going on. But again, shout out to Darren Woodson. We are going to keep pounding that drum for the Hall of Fame, because there are players that should be in the Hall of Fame, and he is definitely, again, what he did, his career accomplishments, how he played the game. Again, what was the key, another, like the final piece to a defense? And people say, well, everybody else is there. But if you don't get that final piece, as people know that do puzzles, if it's missing, it drives you absolutely nuts, because you're just a little bit off. Woody's a Hall of Famer. I'm going to step aside, be right back, dive into men's hoops here on Pitchfork Lunch. All right, we are back here on Pitchfork Lunch. Yes, a National Scouting Combine coming up in February and again, yes, a lot of football, but for a lot of athletes, there's a lot of opportunity there. Again, you can go to nationalscoutingcombine.com, check it out, because guess what? Guess what? There's a lot of opportunity there. So, and even for football players, guys that don't get invited to the draft, you can reach out to the combine. They aren't going to just sit there and make you wait. They'll get back to you. So again, National Scouting Combine, absolutely awesome. Looking forward to that. So it's huge event, great event. They've been doing it for years too. Peeps, they have been doing it for years, so they know what they're doing. And it's a great event to be a part of. It's a great event to be a part of. So again, check it out, nationalscoutingcombine.com. I'll give you more information too as we flip into the new year as well. So that being said, men's hoops, they are taking on Stanford tonight. And it is going to be a big matchup for the Devils on the road, who have struggled on the road as of late. Well, neutral site and yes, on the road they are 6-5, and they and they got a little work to do. They can defend their home court, and they're going to need to do it in conference play. But where they're going to where the mountain is now for them to climb and challenge is getting some victories on the road. Getting some transfers on the road and are getting victories, not transfers, getting victories on the road. So that is going to be huge for men's hoops, because look, 6-5, like I said, but they're 5-0 at home, which is good. You need to defend your home court. That is a very good thing. But obviously, you think of tournament wise, when we're playing on pseudo neutral courts, it might be, distance wise, it might be a little bit closer to somebody else. But yeah, tonight's matchup against the Cardinal. Yes, it is not plural. The Stanford Cardinal. It is at 9 p.m. local time. It's on ESPN too. Like I said, ESPN Radio 620 AM, and then Sirius XM 373. But I mean, look, if you look at Stanford and where they're at right now, actually looking in the pack, I mean, Stanford is actually 5-5. So this is a good opportunity. Again, if you're ASU, you're looking at it just sheer record wise. I mean, Stanford just came off a loss to, San Diego State, their last game. So that's but they're 5-5 overall, and ASU is again one game better, 6-5. But this is the game where you're looking at, if you're Coach Hurley and Frankie Collins, what he said after the Northwestern game, be a mental, you got to come out and you wipe the slate clean. I mean, 6-5, you can say, oh no, let's get into conference play, let's go, and 2 big wins. I mean, because then you look at Cal, who's 4-7. I mean, these are winnable games for ASU. But Stanford and Cal are thinking the same thing when they're seeing how ASU has struggled. So, but yeah, Stanford, I mean, right now, like I said, at 5-5 below ASU. But it's going to be huge. I mean, how does, like I said, Frankie Collins, how does he respond? I mean, Jose Perez, Jemiah Neal, and look, Collins and Neal, like I said, I've chronicled the rebounding issue and being light in the front court due to injuries, and we'll see. Because Neal and Collins have been rebounding, and we know that. And the way they've moved the ball, the way they've played, again, big fan. Big fan of it. So that to me, that's going to help you. And you need to do that. You need to get on the glass. You need guys to work. And, Jose Perez, I think they've adjusted to Perez. They're adjusting better and better. It's looking better. He can drive down the lane and back guys up. And you want that when you get that from a guard and you can be physical, it will open stuff up. Devils need to hit open shots. I'm going to say that. So, but we're going to transition because this is so awesome. I love when I get to catch up with him, especially he's going to be so happy to hear what I did by mistake, leaving a certain player on my fantasy bench who scored 49.5 points as a receiver. And I think he knows who I am talking about, but I'm going to bring in Brad Denny, the co-host of Speak of the Devils podcast, the man that covers the Devils. Look at that. Perfectly themed for Pitchfork Lunch because he knows I'm a homer anyway. His background. Brad, hey, man, happy holidays. How's the holiday season been so far for you, buddy?
Really good. Having a lot of fun, eating too much like everybody. But overall, yeah, I can't complain. The Steelers got a big win on Saturday, so it was a nice precursor to Christmas. So,
yes, they did. And as I was bringing you on, I'm sure you heard me saying I screwed up. I meant to put him in my flex position, and I accidentally benched Mr. Pickens, who happened to score 49.5 points. But you want to know the funny thing about my receivers from that last weekend, Brad? I had Amari Cooper as well, who had 59.5. T. Higgins had 32, and Mike Evans had like 29.5. So it was a good weekend, and I crushed my opponent. But I was literally in tears, and I had the picture sent up. I said, no, I'm not giving Brad or Doug a Christmas laugh. I was going to send you guys the picture of my bench and those 49.5 points sitting right there.
Yeah, I also had Pickens on my bench too. So yeah, it's I can sympathize with your pain.
But the funny thing is, Brad, I've left him in every week. I'm like, it doesn't matter. There's no way he's sitting. Like I've had good ones, and as you know, I've had a few. But any week, I'm like, he's in, and I hit the wrong button and I screwed up. I'm like, man, pay attention. So, but I'm glad Amari Cooper blew up and T. Higgins had a good week too. But yeah, and I do know if it would have came down, if we would have tied, my bench outscored their bench, so I would have won the game. But anyway, let's get to fun stuff because we've seen. I mean, obviously, early signing day was awesome. The transfer portal, they've done a heck of a job, and obviously, I've seen what you've done. I talked to from my old high school, Horizon. I actually got to talk to their new punter, Kenyon Floyd, that's coming to ASU. But your overall thoughts? I mean, you've been around this team, and I mean, look, when a team's losing and a new staff comes in, they still have to recruit and sell it. But in this day and age, Brad, you and I have talked about it before. Look, the promise of a new staff and wins and losses, that's kind of tough to sell to a transfer. But it looks like Coach Dillingham and the staff, man, they hit the road and they got some very quality young men in to come into the program.
Yeah, you mean you mentioned you're really kind of selling them on kind of the vision of the future, not the here and now, and everything in terms of what this program can be. And obviously, if you're talking to recruit, what you can do to be the part of it. And that's kind of one of the questions I've been talking to a lot of these new transfer additions. Is just like, how do you feel about it, or how appealing was it to be part of kind of a foundational piece, kind of getting on the ground floor, if you will, for Kenny Dillingham's vision and what he wants to do. excuse me, with Sun Devil football going forward. And so I think when you're looking at what they've done in the transfer portal, obviously they had a pretty good couple of weekends in terms of stacking some official visits and coming away with a high percentage of conversion rate in terms of turning those visits into hard and fast commitments, and ultimately last week into signings. And I think the first weekend obviously was some nice pieces there, but people just want to know, okay, where's the beef? Where's the beef? Where's the offensive line? So I think, most recently they're able to lock down a couple of guys that, figure to, if not be, guys that can compete for a starting job, at least in that two deep. And obviously we saw last year, just in terms of the how that line, that position group specifically was ravaged, and the depth was was tested, to the point where they're pulling offenses off of YouTube and running swinging gate for 30 plays in a game, which you never want to do. So I think that right now they obviously done, I think, a pretty good job filling some pieces in terms of just the addressing some key areas of need, principally along the both lines. And also, I really have been impressed with just kind of how they've taken and elevated areas of our positions that I think were already in good shape and making them even stronger. Obviously, I think you look there, you look at linebacker or running back, excuse me. You're returning basically everybody, and in Cam Scadaboo, to Carlos Brooks, the 1-2 there. Obviously, you add Jason Brown, the 4-star high school signee, but then you add Raleek Brown coming over from USC, very explosive playmaker, and that's one thing that we didn't see from the running backs last year in terms of just explosiveness. Obviously Scadaboo is a guy that can pound out some hard yards. The Carlos physical runner in his own right, but Raleek's a guy that can take those those matchups in space and bust for big gains. I also really like what they did at safety, adding Kamari Wilson over from Florida. You had a great chat with him as well. You're losing Chris Edmonds, but you're basically getting Xavier Alford back, who unfortunately was the victim of some NCAA malfeasance, just like every other two-time transfer. But you get him. Shamari Simmons.
Preach.
Shamari Simmons is returning. He was voted the team MVP. So I think you have three really exciting guys with experience at the FBS level now leading that group, along with a couple of very talented newcomers, Montana Warren and Josiah Cox. So all of a sudden, that's that back on that Sun Devil defense looks really went from, I think, was in good shape with Alford coming back and the experience with the youngsters. You're adding Kamari Wilson, former 4-star. I really like what they did running back, and so I think they're not done, and they shouldn't be done, and I don't believe that they feel that they are along both lines. But I think right now in this early, in terms of what they've been able to do in this December window, feeling pretty good.
Absolutely, and you said something there, and the linebacker that came in late, because obviously New Mexico State had their coach step down. So Keyshawn Elliott. Now, I mean, looking at what this young man did, I mean, I went back and obviously looking at some highlights, but the guy that had 111 tackles last year. I'm not saying he's Trey Brown, but that's pretty awesome in the middle of a Brian Ward defense, Brad, as you know, to get somebody that obviously has Division I experience, but hopefully you would think could produce like a Trey Brown.
Yeah, I really, linebacker is one area that obviously was kind of like offensive line, but maybe that degree, but the depth is really tested last year. Obviously, Jawan Mitchell didn't work out. He was gone before camp. Will Schaefer stepped away, and some of the injuries that tested that depth. Coming back this year, Tate Romney, I thought, had a very good kind of debut season. We'll see if he's able to build upon that. Caleb McCullough really was able to kind of step up when his number was called. Kavion Thunderbird's a very intriguing youngster. But yeah, you needed some more bodies there, so especially guys with experience. And you mentioned Keyshawn Elliott coming over with a guy who just put up a ton of tackles for a 10-win New Mexico State team. Like good for them. But also, a guy that I just talked to this morning, actually, Jordan Crook coming over from Arkansas, experience in the SEC, also high-level Texas football, played at Duncanville, coached by Rashad Sample's father there. And then Zaire Fiaseu coming over from San Diego State, a guy. I love those linebackers that every sack category. It's not just a guy who's just tackling machine. This is like Fiaseu was a guy that was like tackles for loss, sacks. He was effective in coverage as well. So you have those three guys coming over now that have FBS experience, that has shown the ability to be productive when their number is called, and along with some of the returning guys, I think all of a sudden that you have some depth that in an area of concern, kind of what you've seen in kind of year one in the transfer portal after the staff got here was like basically, as Kenny said, we need guys in here, not necessarily warm bodies, because these guys who could play football, but right. Now you're seeing kind of year two, not just necessarily the desperation of just trying to fill out a roster, but really kind of being able to pick some guys that are going to be able to elevate these positions of need.
Absolutely, yeah, 100,000,000%. I mean, the fact they had spring ball last year, because I remember looking at you a few times saying, man, the fact they can actually do hitting drills and not be worried, like you can have at least a semblance of what a spring ball should look like. You mentioned him before, and by the way, at Brad Denny, so glad he's joining us here on Pitchfork Lunch. Again, you can check him out, the Speak of the Devils podcast, which, again, absolutely awesome. love listening to. And again, I always, like I told you, you always make me sound smart. I see things, I quote you, I send people your way, because if it's anything ASU, you know me, I'm a homer. I'm all for it. But you mentioned Raleek Brown, getting somebody like him from USC. And I had asked, it's funny because I had asked Coach Regal a little bit back, like, recruiting's always, a matchup, and when it's a geographical thing. I mean, when your, conference opponents are only a few hundred miles away, how does that affect recruits? Like, recruiting is a little bit tougher, but obviously, me saying this, UCLA, USC, going to the Big Ten. Now, Raleek Brown, an athlete, I mean, look, I saw the kid play, and I'm like, I was shocked he was in the portal. I thought, okay, maybe a little bit going to the Big Ten. Not that he's not up for a challenge, but maybe he doesn't want, conference games 3,500 miles away, Piscataway, New Jersey. Like, I mean, I get that. But when you look at Raleek Brown, though, I mean, to me, that's a huge get with what they can do. And you talked about it off the top with the offensive line having to stay healthy. But offensive line, depth and health, what does a guy in your eyes like Raleek Brown do for the offense? And how do you think Coach Dillingham, I mean, was able to sell him, but show him what he could do, but just lock that guy down? Because to me, I mean, like you said, the defensive guys' experience, that's huge, but that's a huge get with a guy that can literally flip field position like that, Brad, as you know, and just has that kind of talent.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was really lacking with the Sun Devil offense a year ago, I mean, in addition to health, was just the ability to reel off big plays, especially kind of from the backfield, because as I mentioned, like Scadaboo and Brooks are both physical, hard nosed runners, and they can bust out some 10, 20-yard type gains, but didn't have a guy that was necessarily the threat to just get out in space and just run by people, and that's what Raleek Brown really does. And I know that he was frustrated by some of the things at USC in terms of coming in. He views himself as a running back. He's a smaller, more diminutive framed guy, but they moved him to slot receiver as a sophomore, and kind of really wasn't able to find his complete footing there. And I think that he was really kind of sold on the ability to be one of those like exciting pieces that's going to be primarily a running back, but also be a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield and be used in creative ways. And obviously, when you bring in, or you have Kenny Dillingham with his offensive mind, Marcus Arroyo, who put together some very potent offenses in his day. You have a piece that has the versatility and, most importantly, the explosiveness, the guy who can either make guys miss with his moves or in agility, or a guy who can just like run by people. And so, if you're able to kind of have that combination of that battering ram of where you're just hammering defensive fronts with Scadaboo and Brooks for a spell, then you're able to bring on a guy like Raleek Brown and get him out in space, get him out to the perimeter in creative ways that way. I think that really presents a whole lot of matchup problems. And that's really something that we're seeing in terms of some of these guys that they're adding and some of the pieces they added last year and this year. It's just that this is an offense that really just wants to present a whole list of matchup nightmares for opposing defenses, and wasn't really able to get kind of things going in the way they want with the offensive line and the quarterback injuries a season ago. But obviously we're going to see a Jaden Rashada, Sam Levitt kind of quarterback battle. But whoever wins that battle is going to have some pretty intriguing weapons, because obviously the receivers were pretty stacked a year ago. Pretty much everybody's coming back, added some new pieces there, getting Jake Smith, and then that backfield is just so versatile, so deep. Of course, you have Kyson Brown, the true freshman a year ago, also pretty potent as well. No shortage of weapons, but I think what Raleek Brown does to truly elevate that group and the offense as a whole is just that guy that if you give him a glimmer of space on the field, he can hurt you and reel off 30, 40, 50 plus yard gains in a hurry.
Yeah, I mean, you were preaching music to my ears right there, because with the backs, because you always talk about getting weapons on the field, maybe having obviously tight end split out or extra tight ends on the field. I mean, Coach Dillingham, I'm not saying that to listen to me, Brad, but you could literally have a formation where you have 5 running backs out on the field, and I mean, I'm not saying obviously not all in the backfield. That's some crazy formation, but even like you said, split out. What Scadaboo did, now if you go to that Hellcat offense, I mean, and like I said, I mean, when him and DeCarlos Brooks were together, it was a nice thing, because I mean, DeCarlos Brooks had that hat trick touchdown game, and to your point, Scadaboo pounded on some dudes. It was like, cool, we're just going to punch you in the mouth and then receivers can be open. So yeah, that's, and yeah, and when you said, and you just say Kyson Brown, I was like, not that I forgot about him, but I'm like, oh my God, yeah, Kyson Brown's there too. So what's your take on, because you mentioned it, Vince Amy going to a consulting role, but the coaches that Kenny Dillingham brought in, what's your thought and how do you think they'll fit with the team?
Yeah, obviously starting out as the offensive coordinator change. Obviously, we all kind of knew that was coming once Bill Baldwin had his play calling duties kind of stripped after the third game of the season. So Roy is a guy who, obviously has a pretty good resume. Sat out from coaching this past season, but you got, I think one area is that you saw the success that UNLV had last year or this season. That's a lot of his players, and so he took over a program at UNLV that was pretty bad for basically most of its history, and I believe took it over during the pandemic and slowly built that up and kind of set the stage there. But obviously, I think most importantly, you look at what he was able to do at Oregon, helping those Oregon Duck offenses, and of course, they came down here most notably in 2019, came with an L, but ultimately, obviously, when a Rose Bowl, Justin Herbert obviously is a guy that is very talented, and he's going to be coming on as ASU's quarterback coach. So you have Jaden Rashada, Sam Levitt, two very talented guys, two 4-star members of the 2023 recruiting class. So, well, it'll be a very interesting battle to see, exactly how Marcus Arroyo is able to kind of jump in. But as mentioned, there's going to be really kind of no shortage of weapons at his disposal, provided that they get some good O-line play. And Dyron Reynolds, the new defensive line coach,
Yep.
Interesting resume there. I mean, he's a guy who comes in with a Super Bowl ring from his time with the Colts, but obviously most notably for his time as Stanford's D-line coach, and I believe 7-8 years over the course of two different stints there. Also, and I think one of the interesting thing with both these guys, they're California connections, because the recruiting connections obviously for ASU right now with Carrington and Samples very Texas focused. Obviously the move to the Big 12, but California still has historically always been the kind of the bread and butter there, and so there might have been some concern about where is how's Arizona State going to handle the talent in California, more prominently Southern California. I think that these guys are going to be able to, I think top to bottom, along with Coach Tuatele, going to be able to kind of help get some of the West Coast talent along with as ASU continues to focus on Texas. So it'll be interesting because he has I think Reynolds has a job cut out for him. There's going to be I still have some questions about the interior. CJ Fight coming back after a very promising freshman year, but you still like to see them add another D tackle probably too as well. But I think with this defense and the scheme, we saw some good things. But if some more bodies there for him to develop, I think could go a long way, because I think you saw some attrition just wearing his hair as the defense kind of wore down near the end of the season. So, he's got a good track record, and coming over from Michigan State, kind of knows what it takes to play some big boy football. So, we'll see what he's able to do with the trenches and kind of help develop some of those youngsters.
Yeah, and speaking of youngsters, I didn't realize that the tight end commit, Jaden Fortier. I mean, I saw it, but he had to have ACL surgery. So, I mean, is this from what you've seen? And again, when I just saw it, I was like, oh, I mean, again, with recruiting and the whirlwind, and I'm trying to find out what these players are doing and reaching out to a few, and as you are, but do you think he'll be ready for, fall camp, or is it something that, we might not see him until later on, maybe later on next season?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. Obviously, I believe he tore the ACL in a playoff game near the end of the season. So pretty unfortunate, because he's a guy that this staff was extremely excited about just to get his commit, and also a lot of white knuckle moments down as he put together a monster senior season on both sides of the ball that got the attention of some other schools, including his hometown Oregon Ducks came calling, but ASU was able to get that secure that commitment and turn that into a signing. So yeah, the tight end position was pretty interesting, because obviously you're losing Jalen Conyers and Messiah Swinson. So I think Bryce Pierre is a guy that's very talented, and I think you and I talked to practice. I think this is a guy who's, prior to these departures, already primed for a big 2024. Jason Mons told me last offseason that Bryce Pierre is a guy who has Sunday upside. So we'll see if he's able to kind of, assume those tight end one kind of duties. But yeah, with Fortier kind of coming back, and tight end was a concern. But I do think that you saw them be pretty aggressive in addressing that position through the transfer portal. Marcus and Douglas coming over from Florida State, is their number 3 there, but had some production big bodied frame as well. And then Cameron Harpole coming over from San Diego State as well. Pretty, guy hasn't had a ton of production throughout his career, but from what I'm hearing, they really like his athleticism and his upside as well. So those are two guys that have FBS experience that should be able to help along with Pierre and not necessarily force a guy like Jaden Fortier coming off of you certainly if those injuries, you don't want to rush them back too fast. And so now I think with that trio right there, and they might not also may not be done adding bodies to that room, but I think that those two guys coming in with as experienced FBS transfers, puts you in a position where you don't have to rush and risk the long-term future of a guy that they're extremely excited about in Fortier.
Yeah, no, and his numbers, you're right. And when you show, of course, when they put their highlights up, they're money. But when you see the highlights and you're like, wow, it's like it seemed like he had a lot more to pick from too. And so I can't believe that ASU. I mean, it was all over, but the number 1 and the number 5 ranked players in Oregon coming down to Tempe. And again, I think, a lot of it, and not that, and people say, oh, well, I'm not saying that they're, they can't go too far away from their families. I mean, it's an opportunity to play, obviously college football, get a free education out of it too. But I think the move to the Big Ten with some of these schools, I think regionally, it's like, okay, Texas is a lot closer, than Happy Valley, and I'm not ripping on it. I'm just saying, like, if I want my parents to come to games, like if we have, road games in Happy Valley and then, say in Michigan, like, I mean, that's two, like maybe they can only make one and you want your family there. Well, Texas is a little bit closer. Now, yes, ASU, we saw it. I mean, they're going to have to go to Cincinnati. They're going to have to go to what? UCF. But like, and I mean, Oklahoma State, I mean, that's not that bad. Texas, okay, you can live with that. But then at least Utah, Colorado, BYU, and that terrible team down south. By the way, Brad, could Oklahoma not care about a bowl game any less? I mean, I think they just had their 50-second turnover in the last 24 hours. That was disgusting.
Yeah, that was a wild game. Yeah, and obviously, just like a lot of teams, you lose certain key players, and their quarterback's going to be an Oregon Duck here, and so Jackson Arnold was kind of thrown there. But yeah, I mean that was that offensive line performance. Maybe the Sooners should have been running that swinging gate because they couldn't pass pro with a 3-man rush, and Jackson Arnold's under duress just from 3 guys, and obviously it turns out, but I got to tip the cap to the Wildcats. I mean, obviously just the McMillan, the Fita combo was just as lethal all year. ASU fans certainly saw that, and just nothing you can really do. But yeah, I mean that was a rough watch.
Yeah, no, believe me, I was like, but nonetheless, you know what? And you brought it up. I mean, Rashada and Levitt, I mean, they come from the same class. And a lot of people, I mean, I love people that never played, and I'm not ripping on it. Maybe they did, but at higher levels that never played a competitive sport. Like, yeah, I want to compete with you just because they go out and get somebody, which they needed to do anyway. People were like, oh, Jaden Rashada, he's probably going to cut bait. He did he was hurt and they helped him out. But I'm like, the dude's a competitor. You don't have to be around somebody for that long. And if you compete, it's not just like, oh, we signed a guy and, oh, he's going to be the starter. I mean, look, yes, a new offensive coordinator's coming in, but it's Coach Dillingham's offense. It's what he wants. Now it's another full offseason for Rashada, who we saw what he would be able to do. I mean, and not would he be able to do, but obviously the ceiling, he's definitely pushing it up higher with what he did. So, but just with, I mean, obviously the mess that was, Michigan State, but with Levitt coming in, I mean, what do you see from, how do you think he would fit in, and how do you see the competition going, Brad?
It's going to be really interesting because it's kind of two off seasons in a row, or two that Dillingham's coming in, going to be having a quarterback competition. So we saw kind of the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs, and some of the usual unusual twists and turns that injuries kind of threw into last year's competition. So hopefully we have these two guys, and of course Trenton Bourget coming back as well, that are going to be able to provide a pretty good show. And I think that you're looking at a situation where as Kenny Dillingham said, like Jaden Rashada was told point blank that we're going to bring in another quarterback, and he's like, bring it on. Like, and that's exactly what you want to hear. And I know that a lot of folks were maybe concerned that Rashada might transfer after 1 year. I never really saw that as a very viable possibility. And then, but he's the guy that obviously was handpicked and has that relationship with Kenny Dillingham going back to the recruiting process, just like Sam Levitt did as well. Because back when Kenny was at Florida State, his first offer came from Kenny Dillingham and Florida State as well. So, we see the value of these relationships, and just kind of in this new era of the transfer portal, it's not necessarily, the recruiting is not necessarily trying to land the guy necessarily out of high school. It'd be great if you did, but planting that seed for the future. So now all of a sudden you have these two 4-star 2023 class quarterbacks that are coming out. Of course, Marcus Rowe, the new OC and quarterbacks coach. He's got a good pedigree, but yeah, as you mentioned, it's Kenny Dillingham's offense, and we kind of know what that's going to be. You want a quarterback who's being able to be that dynamic, but also just kind of play that point guard role. You have a lot of those weapons. Most every play in that playbook is get the ball out in 2.5 seconds. Hopefully that offensive line is going to be able to protect whoever's back there. But I'm really excited to see exactly how this quarterback competition goes, and just kind of see exactly maybe what lessons and how the competition is administered this year versus what we saw a year ago with with Rashada, Bourget, Pine, etc.
Right. No, and I love the tweet that he put up, just the picture of a picture of Kobe Bryant. It's like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, what? Like, the fact he has to say that to some people, and you're right. Like, and if he would have transferred, I mean, look, it's on him. But yeah, I agree with you. I didn't see it after a year. All right. Lastly, I got to get you out of here on this, because I'm starting. I've been pounding the desk for a while on this one, but a former Sun Devil is a Hall of Fame finalist. Now, I know he played for a pro team that you're probably not too fond of, but you have to think of your love for Sun Devils. Darren Woodson is a Hall of Fame finalist. And I tell people, I don't care if you hate the Cowboys, you love your Sun Devils. Like, to me, it's ridiculous, because I listened to what Jimmy Johnson has said throughout the years, and even after, way after, he retired, and what guys have said, what Woodson meant to that defense. And I look at the safeties that have went in, and I look at the safeties that have went in and say, okay, was Woodson that? And the answer, not being a homer, but is yes, with how he played the game, what he did at the safety position, and how the final piece of the Cowboys defense that brought Super Bowls. I mean, but I'm pounding the desk for him more so, obviously, as a Sun Devil. But still, Brad, I mean, will you join me in this process of Darren Woodson needs to be in the Hall of Fame?
I won't contest that for sure. I mean, I'm not exactly thrilled that Hines Ward didn't make the final 15. Getting Hines in there, but
Agreed.
yeah, I mean, yeah.
I'm with you.
Well, Woodson's a hell of a player. Obviously, making that transition from college linebacker to pro safety is pretty difficult. But he made it look good, and obviously, as much to everybody's chagrin, those '90s Cowboys teams are pretty damn good. So, and he was a crucial part of that. So, I always appreciate good safety play, and so I think what we saw from him and those years and those title runs was pretty impressive. So yeah. I do think the Hall of Fames can be a little weird. I mean, it's always like those guys that have to wait year after year. I mean, you're either a Hall of Fame or not. Just put you in.
Right. And I get, like, you're not going to put 20 guys in because of speeches. It would be like a whole weekend thing. It kind of would maybe take away a little bit from it. But yeah, the Hines Ward thing cracks me up, because people are like, and he's different than Art Monk, but he's a Hall of Famer. And me, I'm no Washington fan, but Art Monk had to wait all those years. The funny thing is, when these nerds go by numbers, Brad, there was only 2 receivers in the Hall of Fame that literally had better numbers than Art Monk before he got in. Like, if you did, and again, I was young, but you go back and you watch, it's like Art Monk broke a lot of people's hearts. Like, late in games, like the ball came to him, it's like, I'm just going to catch the ball. Like, but the guy, I mean, the numbers, how he played. But Hines Ward, I was like, people always said, oh man, he's the best blocking wide receiver in the league. And you watch him and it's like, okay, well, somebody can just say that, but everybody started saying that. There's no other receiver that downfield that lit people up. And You know me. I sound like I'm a Steelers fan. I appreciate the game. How Hines Ward is not a finalist and how Hines Ward, again, and I'm not taking anything away from Reggie Wayne, but when you start to compare, it's like, well, what I'm looking at the full game. If they ran the ball, the receivers got to be able to punch dudes in the mouth. And there was a lot of really good, corners. Okay, we always say they don't really want to hit, but there's a lot of good safeties. And I know I don't need to tell you this, that Hines Ward lit up. I mean, I saw it. Like, I don't that. Yeah, I'm with you on that. So, hey, look, I will pound the drum in the table for Hines Ward as well too, Brad, because I've been doing it for a long time with Darren Woodson. So I'm with you. And I've said that too. Great minds think alike. If you're a Hall of Famer, you're a Hall of Famer. Like, I don't understand like guys waking in and then the Veterans Committee, like somebody like, I even think back to like Harry Carson. I was like, well, he played with Lawrence Taylor. I'm like, do you know how much easier if you understand defense, and Bill Parcells, you say it like Lawrence Taylor is Lawrence Taylor. Like you see it. But when you have somebody like a Harry Carson you're playing next to, that makes your job a lot easier. Harry Carson did that at a high level, and he had to wait for the Veterans Committee to put him in. So like if Woodson or Ward have to wait for the Veterans Committee, like I'm with you. That in and of itself, because it is the Hall of Fame, not Hall of Great, and those guys are Hall of Famers right there.
Yeah, so we'll see. And I know that in a couple of years I'll be there when Ben gets in on the first ballot. But yeah, so yeah, it's always fun.
Oh man, well Hines should get in before him. That's all I'm saying. But what do I know? I'm just a Sun Devil homer. Hey, Mr. Denny, have a great New Year. Thank you so much for coming on. Again, last minute popped into my head. I saw your something like, man, I should reach out to Brad right before the New Year here. So, any crazy plans for the New Year?
Nah, just keeping it low key.
Yep, absolutely. Way to go. Oh, when's and with Speak of the Devils, when's the next one dropping?
Yeah, Joe and I will be back in studio next week. We'll be wrapping up also, in addition to the podcast, we'll be wrapping up our season 1, the first year, our season on TV here at Arizona's Family Sports Network, who got picked up for season 2. So we'll be having some monthly specials in the interim, and then back to weekly TV shows as well as the podcast come fall.
Awesome. Follow this man. You see it right there at bdenny29 on Twitter. My friend, honestly, have a phenomenal New Year. Thank you so much. And I look forward to talking to you in the new year. And hey, hopefully this basketball team now can start getting some victories.
We'll see about that. Yeah, but thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. That is Brad Denny. I love having him on. And again, the Speak of the Devils podcast, and like you said, he's been at covering ASU for Channel 3 and Channel 5. Phenomenal. Check him out on Twitter at bdenny29. That's it. The last show of the year. Everybody have a phenomenal, happy New Year. Have a phenomenal New Year's. Again, enjoy the bowl games. Enjoy football. Enjoy basketball. Check out ASU, the men tonight, the women tomorrow at 1. Also, don't forget hockey. The men's hockey team, again, is in Lake Placid, New York, as they will take on Clarkson at Adirondack Winter Invitational, again, in Lake Placid, New York, the Herb Brooks Arena. They are that's where they are at. And again, you can check it out. As they take on Clarkson at 5:30 tonight on ESPN Plus, y'all, and it's on Fox Sports 910. So again, you can check out hockey first, and then men's hoops. Again, a very, very, very Sun Devil festive holiday season. Check it out. But again, I want to give a big shout out to Brad Denny for coming on. Follow him on Twitter at bdenny29. You saw it. Again, great work that he does. Again, the Speak of the Devils podcast. Again, people are like, why would you have a competitor on? It's not a competitor, man. It's Sun Devil Nation. It's literally nothing but love for me. So check it out. Again, having him on, and we'll have more guests like that on as we go forward. So love having Brad Denny on. He is, yes, a Steelers fan. I'm a Cowboys fan, but we can always appreciate and respect greatness from, well, maybe not appreciate. You can respect the greatness from the teams. But I'm going to get out of here. Look, everybody have a very, very, very happy New Year. Be safe this weekend. I will be off Monday, but we will be kicking it back up on Tuesday. So again, enjoy your holiday weekend. Enjoy the new year with family, friends, all that good stuff. And I will see you next year in 2024. And yes, as always, again, Woodson into the Hall of Fame. Get behind it, Sun Devil Nation, because it is a well-earned. He earned it, and he deserves it with what he did on the field. So have a great New Year. I will see you Tuesday. And as always, until then, forks up.
Cherry's three. Johnny Walker. Ashing up against control. His shot. Bruce score. They score. They tie the game up 2-2. Some drives out for Robbie Ryan. Her three right on the money. This is Taya Hansen for three. Other side of the rim with a pretty reverse. Wow. 5 seconds to go. Find Hawk. Hawk spins. It rolls on. And Arizona State wins it. Edward pulls off. And buries the puck. Daniels takes the shot.